was when that bond went through. So it's within our cost estimates of what we thought the cost of that would be. It's interior and exterior painting of the tower.
It looks like a picture postcard, so I said, you know, while I'm there, I'm going. Yeah. But that's what's good about traveling alone. I can just do whatever I feel.
I don't think it accommodated the average.
No, I'm doing it all online. I got an Airbnb, I got some hotels, and then I'll just get on a train or whatever I need to do. You may never see me again because I'll...
Unfortunately, that's not what we
kidnapped.
Because things happen so quickly and we have to act on them.
Exactly.
That's usually what ends up happening. That's why their draft agendas when they go out. It's coming. We're still on the grind phase, so we're just...
With Skype, WhatsApp,
My
all that
goal date is
stuff.
definitely before the end of the year.
Yeah.
Hopefully, Katrina's going
Ask
to give
for
an
more
update on
money,
it, but we're just not. Unfortunately, since it's in that advisory, I can't give.
Yes.
Resolutions wouldn't be considered advisory, so if they're requested, I provide them, but no, they wouldn't be up for me. The agenda would be.
Talk to me, Russ. No good?
You can always bother me for that. That's no problem. They're prepared right there. They're prepared right there. Ready? They're prepared right there.
August 13th meeting of Milltown Borough Council will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Council President Dixon, right there.
Present.
Councilman Farkas.
Here.
Councilwoman Kerber.
Present.
Councilman Legati.
Here.
Councilwoman Mayer. Here. Councilman Council President Dixon, right there.
Present.
Councilman Farkas.
Here.
Councilwoman Kerber.
Present.
Councilman Legati.
Here.
Councilwoman Mayer. Here. Councilman President Dixon, right there.
Present.
Councilman Farkas.
Here.
Councilwoman Kerber.
Present.
Councilman Legati. Council was provided by the Mayer. Councilman President Dixon, right there.
Present.
Councilman Farkas.
Here.
Councilwoman Kerber.
Present.
Councilman Legati. Councilman Mayer. Councilman President Dixon, right there.
Present.
Councilman Farkas.
Here.
Councilwoman Kerber.
Present.
Councilman Legati. Councilman Mayer. Councilman President Dixon, right there. Councilman Farkas.
Here.
Councilwoman Kerber.
Present.
Councilman Legati. Councilman Mayer. Councilman President Dixon, right there. Councilman Farkas. Councilwoman Kerber.
Present.
Councilman Legati. Councilman Mayer. Councilman President Dixon, right there. Councilman Farkas. Councilwoman Kerber.
Present.
Councilman Legati. Councilman Mayer. Councilman President Dixon, right there. Councilman Farkas. Councilwoman Kerber.
Present.
Councilman Legati. Councilman Mayer. Councilman President Dixon, right there. Councilman Farkas. Councilwoman Kerber.
Present.
Councilman Legati. Councilman Mayer. Councilman President Dixon, right there. Councilman Farkas. Councilwoman Kerber.
Present.
Councilman Legati. Councilman Mayer. Councilman President Dixon, right there. Councilman Farkas. Councilwoman Kerber.
Present.
Councilman Legati. Councilman Mayer. Councilman President Dixon, right there. Councilman Farkas. Councilwoman Kerber.
Present.
Councilman Legati. Councilman Mayer. Councilman Dixon, right there. Councilman Farkas. Councilwoman Kerber.
Present.
Councilman Legati. Councilman Mayer. Councilman Dixon, right there. Councilman Farkas. Councilwoman Kerber.
Present.
Councilman Legati. Councilman Mayer. Councilman Dixon, right there. Councilman Farkas. Councilwoman Kerber.
Present.
Councilman Legati. Councilman Mayer. Councilman Dixon, right there. Councilman Farkas. Councilwoman Kerber.
Present.
Councilman Legati. Councilman Mayer. Councilman Dixon.
140 trees. Not all trees on the list are all immediately removed. Sometimes the borough staff takes trees down and they don't, every day they don't email me which trees they've taken down. Sometimes with the storms, it occurs, so it takes a few days or a couple weeks before I get that information. I do drive around and check out those tree permit requests, and some of the former permits, they put in a request for their trees, but they're older applications and they have multiple trees. Instead of just the one tree, they've requested to have multiple trees taken down. I know, for an instance, on North Main, he keeps putting in an application for a tree to be removed, and this particular tree is later in the presentation, happens to be a situation where it's in the wires, it's ant infested, and a lot of the trees, people are telling me, are ant infested the last couple of years especially. So some trees permits of course, like I said, we're just reported as one tree when in fact they have more. Though again, you know, it's up to the homeowner if they wish to take them down. Some people have, it's from the last couple of years. Of course, like I said, and they have notified me so I could remove them off the list. Sidewalks as well as power lines are biggest issues, plus, you know, the death of the tree is very hazardous. And that's the type of tree that really would cause an issue, especially in all these storms that we're having. Permits are either mailed or emailed after review of the tree request for pruning or removal. All trees are reviewed also by the staff after I've submitted the list to them. And then they assess the situation, letting them know the emails I received from, of course, the homeowners, hey, this is happening, the tree limbs are dying, they're falling and such. So I make sure they look at and assess it and handle it. So sometimes the trees are handled in-house, or we have an outside contractor. And currently, I had mentioned before, the state has now mandated that everyone has a full-time tree expert, a CTE, a certified tree expert, on staff in their company. Before, you know, it wasn't necessary, but now it is. And these are some of the pictures of the trees that I've taken. As you can see, some of them are in the wires. It's kind of hard to see sometimes. Or the one on the right, you can see this sidewalk is an issue. And this is on the bottom there, that's where the ant infestation has taken place. I'm not very good with pictures with this phone, but if you get up closer, you can see it's a lot of holes on the bottom. So it's getting hollow, and that's a pretty dangerous situation and hazardous. And of course, the one on the right, I think is the same tree. So you can see it's a maple tree that's all in the wires. Proceed. And this is also North Main. As you can see, this is the one that had an application in since 2015. Unfortunately, it's been removed from the list of removals. By the time we get to him, it's like, we got to take it off. So hopefully that's not going to be the case in the future. And this is West Lawrence Street. This has been on since 2006. It's in the wires completely. They don't play out in the yard any longer. I spoke with the homeowner 2 weeks ago. So we are, like I said, assessing the situation, trying to get the staff to handle that. And that concludes the shade tree, and the master list will be emailed. I just have to check on something with Ralph when he returns tomorrow, and the mayor and council will all receive the master list, so they have it for their records. We can proceed to B.
Are you going to take questions, Dorian?
Sure, you can take questions now, or wait till you.
It's up to you.
Whichever.
Oh,
I thought you meant the audience.
so no, because I know a lot of residents, and we've talked about it at several meetings. So once you have the master list, what's the proposal to tackle that list? How is it going to be prioritized? Is it going to be tier level? Is it going to be line trimming versus?
Oh no, I think the line trimming's done now at this point.
Well, I just saw the pictures that you had that were in lines, right? Still?
Right, still. What happened is with the plan, the tree line clearance program, each section of town, there's 5 or 6 layout, and each year they would alternate certain areas of town. And North Main Street was done a couple of years ago, so another couple of years and that will be done. But I'm hoping that with this information, with them assessing it and really looking at the tree itself when they can. Like I said, the dead trees, like there's one on 25 Kuthau. There's really 161 Highland Drive is really dead. I mean, it's got dead branches hanging over the streets and everything else. So if they see that, they can understand that this is a more urgent a concern, especially for, there's several other dead trees on some of the streets. That's just a couple that I can remember offhand. And then what they do is they are going to try and do it in-house as much as they can or outsource it at that point. They have to go through bid specifications, get the quotes, and proceed.
So, I heard you talk about the application process, just so that people here or at home are clear. people that are on the list don't have to reapply at all, correct?
No, they don't have
If
to
you're on the
reapply.
list, you're on the list, and
Unless,
we're
like.
gonna get to you?
Unless you applied only for that one tree, and now you need to apply for the other tree that you didn't put in. But some people, like I'd said, when I was getting estimates done in 2015, called me up, and the tree service was like, well, they have more than one tree here. There's, at Durst, it's 7 trees. He's asking me, why are we only estimating for one tree to come down? And the sidewalk is affected, especially on South Durst, if you look.
So the people that are on the list, we can say you're okay, unless you have an extra tree, but if you're on the list,
Correct. You're on the list.
you're okay.
You're okay.
Now, are we gonna share that list with the public?
What is the, where's John? John? Can we share the master list online, so long as it's just the address of the location for the tree to be removed or pruned? Yeah, some of them are just pruning. I'm sorry, I should have mentioned
So on
that.
the list, is it gonna have pruning and removal?
Correct. Because some people just want them pruned, that's all they put in.
That may be something maybe we can address with what you're going to speak about later, about the new website.
True,
Mhm.
true.
Yeah, have a
This way it
form.
can be updated continuously as you're taking down trees are built.
But I guess, so I'll wait till we see the list, but one of the comments that I get a lot is if people are driving around and they see somebody's tree being removed, and then they'll say, hey, I've been on the list for 8 years. Why is that house getting their tree cut down? So that's why, to have a little bit of prioritization on it, because if it's just, a minor thing, but versus if somebody has a dead tree that's leaning on their property, would they, get bumped higher on the list?
Absolutely, especially have brown leaves. Your tree was alive, and now it's not. That means the disease for the BLS on the pin oaks have progressed. But generally speaking, the more empty branches that are on the tree, the more it's in decline. Or like 20 Kuthau, which is totally dead. There's no leaves on it. That needs to really come down. That's a maple tree. And some of the trees are just like that. They're turning faster, and sometimes you don't know. But that's a priority first. And then they would proceed.
Are we going to be putting it out to bid? I thought we talked about that at the last meeting.
Yes, but there was specifications done? Do
The
you have any updates?
specifications were not done, because we can't
Oh.
do the specifications until we receive the updated master list.
Okay.
The intent is to go out to bid. The unit prices for a tree removal, when you go out to bid, are significantly lower. One of the reasons we, again, with the prioritization list, once we have the master list, we can get cost estimates and determine what will be included in a bid scope. A lot of those questions can't be answered until we have more of an idea of what we're looking at in terms of work. I know some of the things that me and Ralph had spoken in effect to was whether there would be stump grinding, or if that was something that was going to have to be done in-house after the fact based on cost. It also comes into play since we own our own electric utility, whether or not they're going into the lines for removals and things of that nature. Those were all things that we needed to address, and we would address once we received the master list. There is a state contract vendor for tree removals, which we do use on occasion now to address certain trees that are causing significant issues that need to be addressed immediately.
Is there a reason why we couldn't use the list we have already to do the bid?
Right.
The last list that I was given was from June 26th. And I've been told that there was more information to be updated, and that they were still adding to it at that point, and I just haven't received
And
it.
I was,
I do
even
have a
last week.
question about the list.
Mhm.
That list has grown exponentially the last year or so.
Yes.
If I remember that list correctly, when I handed it over, there was nowhere near 240 trees. From your presentation, it looks like you're combining the old shade tree list of trees and the utility list that's in wires, because the former shade tree list didn't have trees that were in wires. That was the utilities department's responsibility. It was not the shade tree committee's responsibility. Has that list been combined to get both those type of trees together?
I don't necessarily know, however, the I know that when we've spoken about this bid as a project, it has been as a whole, not necessarily as just shade tree, because our budget items wouldn't just be out of the shade tree budget. So it was able to be utilized from the utilities department purview. Again, once we got that master list, that would be how we would determine if pruning would even be included in a bid specification. If we had $100,000 to put into the bid, I'm making up numbers, oh, I'm sorry. If we had $100,000 and we had 300 trees, $100,000 isn't getting us 300 trees. So then we look at that and say, how many of these are pruning? Okay, now we have 200 trees. Now we're prioritizing those 200 trees to make that cost estimate work. Does that make sense?
I appreciate that,
Okay.
but I really am looking for the answer of, does this new list combine the utilities list and the shade trees list?
It has always combined, even in 2015. It wasn't separated at all, and that's why they had the comment section for wires that would be, offset to the utility department, and Ralph would just go to the next one if it didn't say power wires or gas lines or water lines, because that would be the responsibility of the utility department. And the list has always been combined. I don't know that it was separated before.
It was separated. When we got the applications and there was utility lines involved, it went directly to the Director of Utilities. It did not go to the Shade Tree Committee. So they were separated lists.
But the shade tree is responsible for giving the permits out for the right-of-way trees, all of them. That's why you have a committee.
Well-
And since I took it's always been on the list. When I gave you the list in 2015, they were all on the list.
No. When you gave me the list in 2015, there was maybe 100 trees on there. It had nothing to do with utilities, and you specifically told me,
Not the tree line
if the trees were in the
clearance.
utility lines, it has nothing to do with shade tree, it all goes to the utility department. Those were your directions to me when you handed it over.
I understand. That was the responsibility of the utility department to address those trees that the permits were given.
Right, and
For
that
those
tree,
homeowners.
whatever tree it was, it never came back to that list. The utility department took care of it, and they had their own list. Now, I believe that that list has been combined. And I'm just saying, is that list combined or not? If it is,
It's
fine. If
been
it's not,
combined,
I would-
okay, it's been combined, then I've always combined it. I've never separated it.
I would believe yes, simply because when I looked at the list and started going around measuring them, half of them were utility lines, was right over someone's water service, where it was tipping the valve box over and everything. So I had received a full list of every tree that needs attention, and when we went around to look at which ones had been taken down and check diameter so we can get an idea of bid scope, so many more were there that were never even on the list to begin with, where the sidewalks raised 6 inches, or where the power lines are running directly through the middle of the tree. So we looked at this as the money's coming from, most likely, the utility department for the cost. So we're gonna make sure that we are getting our money's worth and tackle all the ones. I think the problem that we face now is that there are so many that need attention, that we're looking for a better way to prioritize them than just sidewalks and in the power lines.
No problem. I just wanted to know why that list grew so fast. And that pretty much explains why, so
Yeah.
that's fine.
And if I may say, and I don't want to speak for the mayor who's not here, but I know he has been approached by surrounding towns to do co-ops, where they will come in and help us with some of the trees. They have the equipment, they have the manpower, and he's in the process of speaking with them now. I don't know what the outcome of that's going to be. I don't know if it'll be positive or not. But he is also looking into the trees.
So do we have any time frame once it goes out to bid and we get it when, so my question is for those people that really have trees that are really bad before the winter storm, heavy snow season comes, do we have any time frame of how long it will take to get through the list, Dorian?
Well, Ralph is also talking to local townships who've reached out to them, to him. So I don't have an update, because he just started the conversation, but they're looking to assist us in that manner because of the enormous task that's at hand. So I'll have an update definitely by September 10th.
Okay, thank you.
Or if the website's up, I don't know. I didn't think so.
I just have one question, well, actually, two questions. So do we have a CTE on staff?
We don't have a certified tree expert, no. But I said the tree services that we hire must have a CTE full-time on staff, is what I was getting
Okay.
at.
Okay.
As whereas before, they didn't need to, now they have to stay
Okay.
along.
The second question is, so I just want to be clear. So there's people on the list since 2006.
Correct.
Those people are not a priority.
They have become much more of a priority after looking at the trees in the last couple of weeks. I've been going around. They certainly are a priority. They've more in decline or half dead, or what's worse is the infestation has occurred. So it does pose a hazard and an emergency.
Okay, but that's not the priority. We're not going to feed off that list going by, if you've been on the list the longest, your tree should get cut, and kind of work your way up through dates.
Right, well, so you have to understand too, the BLS can be progressive or it cannot be. And believe it or not, some of them, I'm surprised, even though they are 2006, 7, and 8, are still okay, but not all of them. The majority of them do really need to be addressed and be removed from that back time.
In other words.
Like, I had
No.
I had a tree this year completely dead. Last year was full of leaves and everything else and lively.
The idea
And
is
you
to-
just don't know, and it's a shame, but I just don't know.
I think one of the problems this year too is this miserable rain. we've
Yeah,
had so
and that's
much.
progressively made it
Okay,
worse.
So you get ahead, the rain combined with heavy wind, trees start coming down, even good trees are being uprooted.
Correct.
The idea is that it's not just the age of how long someone's been on the list, but which ones serve the most danger to public safety, whether it's sidewalks or fallen branches, which could then chop out power lines. So it's unfortunate that some people have submitted and been approved for a tree to be removed back in 2008, but if it's a healthy tree and it's just in that resident's eyes more or less a nuisance that they don't want it there anymore, if it's not as bad as some of the other ones that we can afford to take down, however far the money gets us to make it safer, and then we can go off of the year that it was submitted.
Okay. I don't want to belabor the point, but then why was the tree put on the list in 2008? If the tree was put on the list in 2008, the tree should have come down. So now we're in 2018, and the tree's still standing, so then why was the tree put on the list in the first place? It just doesn't, all I'm trying to do is lay this out for the residents, because I know there's residents who have, approached me and said, oh, I've been on the list since, for 10 years. So I just want to make sure people understand what the procedure is, so it's, fair for everyone.
Anything else? If not, we'll go to the next item, which is complete streets, safe routes to school.
Yes, this is regarding, last meeting, we put in the application for the complete.
Excuse me, Councilwoman Cooper, was there another half of that first presentation?
Oh, no, that was it.
No, that was
Yeah,
it?
this is for this B now.
Oh, okay, okay.
Sorry about that.
All right.
Basically, the complete streets, we should be hearing soon about that. And basically what we're trying to do is improve Main Street, whether it's pedestrian traffic, bicyclist traffic, and of course vehicular traffic. And the reason we're applying for these grants is because we've managed to put together a Safe Routes to School campaign, which we did. We're going to do one in the fall, just as a light one. We're not going to have a big kickoff one like we did this past May. And we want to purchase either new signage, lighting, whatever it is, to try and draw that attention to slow down. We know we have to get county support. They've already given us the letters to apply for these, as well as for Safe Routes to School. And that's why we're applying for Safe Routes to School. The good thing about it is CME has already applied for it, so most of it's written. I did get updated information from the school, so I have those letters. Hopefully, the council is going to approve it, of course. But it's also, there is no set dollar amount. It's a certain amount of money that they allocate to a municipality based on your application. So we're collaborating with CME, the police chief, Ralph, in terms of getting pricing to see what we can do. Be it just painting the side streets by Church and Main, Ford and Main, and then we want to expand it out to other areas of town. So this will be a good tool and a good planning tool for us in the future. So we can use this as a basis to go from. And in terms of the TCNJ grant, that's why this slide is up, and I did pass out to the mayor and council. This is a proposed arbor and going to be a rock entrance. We haven't designed that yet. There's some information we're still working on, but in the side, you can see the barricade has been installed. And we will probably set back the pergola or arbor a little bit, and it depending upon the size, but how we do it, we'll put like a little entrance of planting flowers, rock formation. And what this allows us to do is also work on, you can proceed if you want. Also, the area of the wildflower garden. With TCNJ, it's the College of New Jersey, they go out to municipalities based upon your application to come help us for an 8-hour shift. Since they're less than an hour's drive, we can be included in this particular application. No money crosses hands. They come in, they design what it is that they design, and they implement the plan. Now, if we get approval from council, I will try to seek the funding for this before I put the application in. So hopefully, you know, I can work with local Home Depot. They're looking for projects in our town, I've been told, so I'm seeking their support as well, especially for the wood project. I know I've reached out to other Rutgers and so forth about some of the plants, but even if we prep it and install some of this and have the students help us, this will be a tremendous help to us and really expand the open space which is behind the ice cream depot and to open that up more with more inviting pathway. So that's what we have. A volunteer couple, Bill and Sharon Caruso. She's sitting in the audience, and they have volunteered their labor to build the pergola or arbor. All this, once it's approved, I send it to the county, and then they give other recommendations. So even though we might select something, they might say, well, we need this, we need that, and they'll enhance it. I already spoke to Rick Lear, so he's very excited, and you know, I was waiting for this if we do approve it. The other TCNJ grant, because you come in to submit as many applications, the particular thing that CME had sent to us via email, Kathleen had sent us the stormwater management new mandates, and what I would like for them to do is assist Ralph. I already spoke to him and he said, sure, let's try and get them in, is put this application in to have them assess, I mean not assess, but take their cell phones, take pictures, take the locations of wherever the catch basins are, and then what Ralph will do, or if he authorizes me to help, but that's fine. If Ralph will just have to upload it, or the team leader, if he can also have the team leader upload it to the free software at NJDEP. They created this so that municipalities can meet the requirements on December 31st, 2018. So right now, that's just a preliminary thing, and we could do it at, you know, a nominal cost. So I'm hoping that this would application will be accepted. They don't get too many applications, so you know I think we have a strong possibility. And since we're a smaller town, that would be terrific, and they would assist with that project. In addition, Ralph already reached out to the Lower Raritan watershed. There's another outreach in the packet. I know I have printed it out and have it here somewhere, but in the packet, you're supposed to do public outreach. We have to take catch basins and spray them with their templates that they have. They have 3 templates. That's a $1,200 savings, and the Lower Raritan will be loaning those to us. We'll be one of the first to get them. We just have to figure out what day and get that started. But there's a lot of more public outreach, and luckily the county, when at the county fair, they supply these for us, so this would be cool. We could really work in the council. We won't have to put much cost to this, and have a meeting, have some outreach, go through the library, go to, you know, seniors, and have something with the school district, maybe an assembly, so that we can really do the stormwater management to let people know you need to keep the catch basins clean. It's to improve your water quality. It's to assist us to keep everything flowing properly so that when flash flooding occurs, we're not getting backed up too. So it's a way that we have to do this outreach throughout the community. And this is just a blow up at the wildflower garden. And this would be a great project if we do get the TCNJ grants to support our town. Any questions?
Seeing none, we'll move on.
Okay, thank you.
Next item on the agenda is Milltown Day, October 6th of this year.
I'll keep it short. We are getting some sponsorships in, and we're very excited. A lot of tables are being taken up, lots of nonprofits, new vendors, and I'm happy to say we'll have Milltown Day on October 6th with the rain day October 7th. So let's pray for sun on October 6th. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Next on the agenda is miscellaneous engineering items. Mike?
Thank you, Councilman Dixon. Good evening, everyone. Tonight I have Deanna Corio with us and Luke Plaskanka. They're going to make some of the presentation on the engineering items tonight. Deanna just received her license. I'm not sure if Lou announced that, but she just became a licensed professional engineer with us. And we're pleased to have her here tonight so that she can assist us with the engineering that happens in Milltown. Without further discussion, I think I'm going to refer the first part of this to Lou with regard to the status of the Public Works facility and how things are proceeding over there.
Yes, Council President Dixon and council members. When we last reported, or since we've last reported, the underground storage tanks have been removed from the site across the street. And since that time, the contractor's been working on earthwork. There's a large amount of excavation that's been done. Most of it's been taken off site and disposed of. There's still some more that has to come out. They've also begun and are in the middle of constructing the underground stormwater management facility, which is a series of underground pipes that will detain the water subsurface, and slowly allow it to dissipate off the site. They're also now preparing the subgrade for the retaining walls that will be around the site to achieve the grades for the project.
And just in a way of expansion, the new architect is in the process of going through the architectural plans, as you know from the earlier meetings of the year. We understand that there's some changes and some recommendations he's going to have for hopefully for your next meeting, and hopefully we'll be able to have some prices from the contractor if necessary in order to go through and make those changes. Anytime you have permits with regard to any building, many times the changes in permit requirements or whether there's changes in just the way the architect's approach, there may be some modifications needed. So they'll be discussed. We're going to request that the architect come to the meeting, explain to those changes with you, and hopefully have some prices to attach to that. So that's where that's set. And the work is proceeding along as Lou indicates. Just in a way of miscellaneous items, we do have just some additional things to report. One is we were asked to assist the utility department with regard to a location of your force main. You have a force main, as you know, leaves Church Street and heads into New Brunswick. There's a portion that goes under Route 1. The state DOT, actually an engineer that working for the state DOT, is looking for a location on that underground line. Because of the type of line it is, and because most people that are around today weren't there when it was installed, the line actually is situated to some extent underneath the highway. So what happens is that typical location equipment may not be able to locate that. So what there is out there is something called ground penetrating radar. And we've been able to go through and obtain a price for you to authorize, and this can be done probably administratively, but we want to let the council know to locate this. I think it's about $1,500 to go there and have the guy come out and locate the line. And this basically runs from Elkins Lane and runs underneath the Route 1 for a portion, and then comes out and daylights inside the jug handle that goes under the highway and goes back up on the other side. There's an air release chamber on that side, so they'll be able to get some idea where the line is, and they need to get it located. This goes back way before my time. I've been around a while, but I haven't really done much work with this. So this is probably the best way to locate it and to get it done. So it's our recommendation that you proceed. We will review this with Mr. Eckert and work through channels in terms of getting it authorized. This is evidently the state is in the process of doing some work on the bridge. We're exactly sure what they're doing. They don't usually tell the boroughs. But we understand there's some work to be done to the bridge in there, and you want to make sure that force main is located and on their drawings so it isn't in harm's way during any kind of construction. Next we have on your agenda tonight, we did receive bids for the elevated water storage tank. We have a resolution in draft form for you tonight, recommendation of award. There were several things added to the water storage tank. There was deletion items where we've looked at the financial end with your chief financial officer. We've talked and taken a look at our application to the trust, and it appears you have sufficient monies to award it. We make this recommendation based upon our review of the tank, our review of the existing coating system, and major concerns we have for you if the tank is not maintained. A steel tank like that, because the actual exterior of the tank, the skin of the tank is the structural element, there's no structural reinforcement in that tank. We're very concerned that if the tank coating system is not maintained, that you could have structural failures on the tank, and which become much more costly to go through repair. There's always a difference of opinion how many years you have. There's a cathodic protection system on the tank, and we all understand that. But from my standpoint, I'm concerned about letting it go any further. Once you start having degradation on the skin of the tank, I'm concerned that it could go through and affect it structurally. So we're happy to report that the prices are within the budget. It did come in a little higher than we expected, but within the allowable financial allowance that we had in the project. So we recommend you move forward and to award that tonight. The plan is to have the tank painting and work started in September. Because of the way your water system is, we cannot recommend you take your tank out of service any time in the summer. Even September at times is a very difficult time to take it out of service because you do have some 90-degree days. So all the prep work can be done, and then probably about the end of September, depending on what the weather looks like, the tank can be drained and then painting will start. So that's our recommendation, and that's why we waited to this time period to go through and do it. You purchase your water from New Brunswick, who also same source as East Brunswick, so we're concerned about any kind of exposure when you have all your tanks in service or not in service. So that's why we've waited for this time of year. The tank could be painted through the fall. If it turns out it does get held up, interior painting can occur on the inside of the tank. Don't forget that we're going to blast this. First thing they're going to do is build a curtain around the outside of the tank. That's to prevent both blasting from basically winding up all over the parking lot, and then the paint to be done inside that curtain also to prevent paint from washing all around the car. So it's quite a project. It's very time consuming, and the costs have gone up significantly over the last 5-10 years just to get a recoating system done. So it's our recommendation to proceed. It will not get any cheaper.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else, sir?
The last thing I have is we have talked about this at the last meeting, your transportation planning grants. One is that we've suggested that you include in that TAP grant the cost to relocate the train station, which we've talked about. You've submitted that before. We think it's an eligible product. We think that that would be a good use of the funds with the letter from the county and supporting it. We think it's a good application for this process. The Safe Routes to Schools, with regard to those projects, we've had a couple of projects in over the years. One is a walkway in Borough Park, which is actually, Bradford Park, forgive me, and that should be included. And also, there was a right of acquisition for this bridge back here behind the Hess station. I think those two projects were put in. We suggest you do it again. They're good projects. We think they score high. It's just that there's such a demand for these funds that many of the towns get them before we do. But I think they're good projects. There's very little we have to do, as Councilman Kerr indicated earlier. Just have to update the estimates and put it back out. Okay.
What's the conditions of that TAP grant? What would we have to, what's the borough's responsibility?
Well, it depends how much money they give you, Nick. You know, it's we're going to go through and try to get as much as we can. It depends. One of the things that, with regard to the relocations we've talked about before, is that what you need to do is get a foundation built on the county side, and then basically lift the building. The building is set up on actually rails for almost like a train car, and you probably pick it up and move it. You might even be able to move it across the tracks, and then set it back down on the foundation. We've asked, and it's been discussed, and I think Councilman Kerber's been working on this also, is you have to decide what you're going to do with this train station. You allow the public in, and then there's a question about ADA access, and then whether there's a need for a comfort station in and around or inside the building. So those things have to be addressed. But I think the idea is to try and get as much money from Trenton as you can, and then you're going to have to supplement it.
Like it's not a 50% grant, it's not an in-kind?
As far as I know, I think there's no match.
No match?
No.
Perfect, thank you.
And luckily, I'm sorry, with the Safe Routes to School, we also have Keep Middlesex Moving, all the reports, and the last one just came this week. So this will really enhance the Safe Routes to School application, I think.
And Mike, with the water tower, when you drain it, it's our secondary source of water?
Actually, the way it works is that you buy your water from New Brunswick, so when you take the tank out of service, it basically, if you didn't have the East Brunswick connection, when I mentioned that, you'd have a problem and we'd be more concerned. But you have a connection with East Brunswick, we will coordinate with East Brunswick when and if you take the tank down. So that's your secondary source. So if it turns out there's an issue with regard to storage or New Brunswick has an issue, then you would turn to East Brunswick for supply.
Okay.
The reason you don't do it in the summertime is because, as you can imagine, when it's very hot out, everybody's using water. It's the last time you want to be going to the town next door asking them for water, because everybody's usually running short at the same time.
Okay.
Okay. So ideally, it'd be nicer to paint the tank when it was sunny out, but it's not always that way, because you have to do it off-season.
I think we actually approved the interconnection agreement with East Brunswick at the last council meeting.
I think you did,
Not
yeah.
mistaken.
When was
Mike?
the last time we did that, Mike? The water tower?
The tank has never been painted, actually, except for the first time. The tank's about 25 years old. It was in another life for me, it seems like it anyway, but it's about 25 years ago. So, usually they guarantee about a 10-year life on painting, so you got your money's worth out of this. You know, ideally, I wish it could last 50 years. And the new painting systems that we have today, they claim longer life, but we can't really get them to guarantee or warranty for you. Generally, it's a 10-year belief that they're going to be able to go through and get you 10 years. We'll hope for more than this. This is 25, and that tank was painted right at the changeover when they changed painting VOCs and things like that. So we're hoping you get a better life out of this one.
Mike, I just have a quick question about the Route 1 locating the force main under there. Are they going to install any sort of permanent monuments so that we can easily identify where this is in the future? If they come back and say, oh, we need to survey it again or have it marked out when a contractor comes, I don't want to have to spend another $1,500.
Rich, I think that's a good idea. What we'll do is we'll coordinate with your department or my guys, and we'll get some marks out there for you.
Okay.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
And then under miscellaneous engineering items, I know we had spoken in the past regarding coming up with budgetary numbers for the force main that we have currently going to New Brunswick and comparing that to costs for ourselves running that over to MCUA directly. I believe it's somewhere along the lines of driving down the PSE and GE easement straight out to Rutgers Gardens essentially, but on this side of Rogers Lane for the interconnection.
That's right.
Where are we with that? And what do we need to do to make sure that we've got that moving along?
Okay, well, what we have talked about in the past is that we recommended that you really consider doing something with your force main. It was installed in the early 1900s, 1910, 1920s. It's reached its end of its useful life, as engineers like to say, as painful as it sounds. And it has served you well. The problem is you have higher flows and higher pressures inside the line. And over time, the wall thickness becomes questionable, and then you have joints that begin leaking and breaks that occur as we've had over the last couple of years. We've looked at possibly changing it in the same location. We looked at possibly running it along the rail line, and then there's another possibility which you basically divert those flow. Instead of going into Brunswick, you go directly to MCUA. We did run some estimates years ago at this point, but we have to go back and revisit them, and we'll do that and be able to provide a report to probably next month.
Yeah, I'd like to see something at the next meeting, possibly a presentation if you guys could, with not only some cost comparisons, but what we can do. I understand there's a portion that was lined at some time.
That's right.
From West Church up to John Street or Our Lady of Lourdes, whatever that section was, it seems to be holding up.
That's right, yeah.
You know, what are some other options besides just open cutting, and then what are our options for route, whether we continue to go to New Brunswick, which ties us to them for our water supply, or if we go to MCUA directly, we're able to find another source for water.
We'll be able to put that together for your next meeting.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mike, just one quick question. On the location of the force main, are they going to do test holes?
No, this is ground penetrating radar, so they'll put some type of a light charge on the air release and try to go through and use the radar. What the radar does is it basically visibly sends a charge through the ground and then sees the difference in potential. And that's how it figures there's a pipe in there. And it's almost like any type of other radar or photographs that are being done. It basically shows a deviation in the potential of the ground. So we'll get a location.
Right, but there's an offset. The deeper it is, you get an offset on the picture.
Oh,
So my question is, okay, they can locate the line with the GPR, but are they gonna do test holes to verify?
We would ask the DOT to do that. And basically tell them approximately where our pipe is and ask them to test pit it for us. Sure that if they decide to go through and refuse it, that the borough may have to do it. But right now, this company just does the radar, they don't do excavations.
Okay.
We're trying to keep the cost to a minimum, at least to get a rough idea for it. This is really only planning right now anyway. It's not real for design and construction.
Okay, thank you.
So I just have one more quick question. So talking about the force main, and we have other things that need to be done, just how does the water tower, what's the thinking to jump that to the top of the list? So in other words, if we have 4 or 5 things, the loops, the force main, what brought the water tower to the top of the list? And if, you know, because now we're going to be spending 1.1 million on that, would we need to potentially save that if the water tower is okay for a couple years to do something else? I mean, so what is your process for jumping that to the top of your recommendation list?
Keep in mind, we don't make policy, we just make recommendations.
Correct.
There was earlier discussions, probably 3-4 years ago, that brought the tank to a higher priority, and there was,
Okay.
Mayor and Council directed us to put the project out. We made an application to the trust. This is an application to the trust. There's been many months spent on getting this funded by the trust. You do get potentially some cost forgiveness on this because you're less than 10,000 people.
Okay.
So we're looking at those things so that we can hopefully try and get that cost reduced for you because you do have that ability. So there's a lot in play here. Just in terms of being your engineer, I'm concerned with the way the coating is failing, that you could have a problem with the steel in the shell of the tank. And, you know, it's the cost to replace the steel plates. What they do is they have to go up there on a system, a scaffold system, for lack of a better word, and cut a plate out completely and then insert a new plate in the middle of the air, 120 feet. So the cost would go up astronomically. So
No,
I
you
can't-
answered my question. It's been in the works for a while.
Yeah, I can't see it
Before
for you,
my
but-
time, so
Yeah,
that's
okay.
good to know. Okay, thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
It's actually nice to see one of the things coming off of our capital improvement plan list as well.
And the new money from the trust, and as Councilor Rowlewski is aware, there's a possibility of maybe able to get some principal forgiveness because you are less than 10,000 people, so.
Great, thank you.
Do we know the terms?
Yeah,
Interest
it's
rates
a 30-year process now, which we never get the actual loan amount until they go to final, but they're running 1.5% to 2%, very much like the substation.
This paint job will last how long, and how long is it guaranteed for?
Well, it's a good question. So the contractor guarantees it for 2 years, and then the painting companies will never give you a warranty, but the general thinking is 10 years. Here you got 25 years out of your first paint job, so with a better painting system, I'd like to say you're going to get at least 25 years, but no one will warranty that, no one will guarantee it. We're giving you the best paint system we can find for the money, but at the same time, you cannot get someone to go through warranty. You have a situation there along the turnpike, which is very aggressive air. We've been surprised at the paint abuse that it gets up in there. So, you know, everybody has to live with that, unfortunately.
Mike, can you go back 25 years, get the same company to come and do it?
Well, I gotta tell you, it costs just a little bit more to get the tank built for what the paint jobs cost you. That's what gives you an idea of how things have gone up.
Just one more question.
Sure.
How are we gonna handle the antennas?
The antennas, good question. And this has come up at committee. We have notified all the companies that they have to pull their antennas off the tank. We've been working them for over a year now, trying to go through and make sure they're aware of it. What happens is they'll bring in a temporary antenna, and each one of the purveyors will get on that temporary antenna, and then we'll paint the tank, then they'll come back in. So, now, they're gonna take a little bit of a coordination. They're never easy, these companies, but they've known about it for a year. And when you've been negotiating new contracts, John Bruder just put some language in that they're required to move their equipment off our tank when we go to paint it. So it just wasn't in some of the earlier contracts.
Right, do they weld brackets and stuff on the tank?
They do, and what happens with those brackets, another good question, they all have to be on before we paint because the welding operation will ruin the paint job.
Right.
That's right.
Okay.
Okay,
Anything else, sir?
that's all I have.
And
Council
moving
President
on,
Dixon.
We'll go with the audience comments.
Wait, Council President Dixon.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm going out of order here. I would like to just change it up a little bit. I see that Assemblyman Joe Daniels is here tonight, and I know he has a very busy schedule. I just winked at Gabriella. She said it would be okay if we can ask him to speak for a couple of minutes, and then I know his schedule demands him other places, so if we can do that now, we can get him out of here as fast as possible.
I have no problem. Anderson, good evening.
Good evening, Council President Dixon. Good to see
Yes.
you again, members of the council, everybody in Milltown, hello. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to come in front of you tonight to give you a few, several updates. So I'd like to just start a new subject matter. So, since I've been serving in the legislature, Councilman Farkas, Legati, and more recently Councilwoman Mayer has been asking me why small school districts like Milltown just simply are not getting their fair share of the school funding formula. So I asked this past, the early part of the session to be assigned to the Assembly Education Committee. And I did work very hard in being one of the members who crafted Assembly Bill A2, which for the first time since 2009 modernized this school funding formula. So over the next 7 years, underfunded school districts like Milltown's will be increased to ensure the adequacy of appropriations that were set under the initial School Funding Reform Act. So Milltown's school district in 2019 will see an increase of about $300,000. Now that's 25% more approximately than you were receiving. And this additional $300,000 will be good for the students. It'll be good for ensuring that your needed curriculum programs continue, and of course, good for the taxpayers. So kudos, council members, for standing behind me while we kind of push this Democratic agenda down in Trenton during the budget, hoo-ha that we had that almost shut down the state. But we got it in the budget, and it's not just Milltown, it's lots of towns that were underfunded. But I'm glad that Milltown is now going to receive about $300,000 extra for the next 7 years. So I also want to bring to your attention and note again, myself and my staff continue to monitor the turnpike property that surrounds the homeowners near and around Pinewood and Elmwood Drive. And while this past year, so we're on this issue for about 1.5 years approximately. I was most concerned and vigilant this past winter. We did not receive one complaint, one notice of concern from my office, though we were out there at a minimum of every other month, if not every month. And as I promised you from day one, I'm going to stay vigilant. I'm going to go out there and continue to inspect. I am inspecting, and actually we are continually noticing things that go wrong and reporting that and getting action from the Turnpike Authority. I was out there as recently as in the last 1.5 hours and spoke to the neighbors, walked their property, talked about the Marine Corps and Army. We're both veterans. There's some dead trees that are going to get replaced, a little bit more grading. The rainwater washed it away. Apparently maybe the Turnpike doesn't have as good of an engineering firm as you good folks. But it's a lot better. The trees are growing, the ones that haven't died, but they will be replaced. And I'm glad to hear that the neighbor closest to that property said, listen, in the wintertime, unless we go outside, we didn't hear anything. We know it's there. There's some sound, but it was not an issue. So it seems to me the Turnpike has kept their word and kept to their responsibility. We held our feet to the fire, and they have not been recalcitrant to taking care of their neighbors and being good stewards of their own property. So again, council members, for standing next to me and going out there with me, thank you very much. I always say we work better when we work together, and Milltown is important to me as it is you. Also, the last issue, Councilman Farkas, thank you for bringing to my attention the downed trees on the Conrail line. That was a safety issue for the homeowners and the property owners, and we're seeking solutions on the drainage problem on Kennedy, and we'll hold their feet to the fire if we have to with those issues. So let's just stay together, let's continue communicating, and bringing our resources together, and we're going to continue having Milltown, one of the most beautiful towns and boroughs in the state of New Jersey. If any of you ever need my assistance, my motto is, I'm always at your service. Please don't hesitate. You're a small town, but you're very important, and I love being there for you. If any of you have any questions, that's basically all I have to say, Council President.
Thank you, Mr. We appreciate it. Thank you for all your efforts.
Thank you.
And now we'll move into audience comments. If any member of the public wishes to speak on the items listed on the agenda, please step forward and say your name and address for the record. Comments are limited to the items discussed on the agenda meeting. Yes, ma'am. What was that?
Door.
The front door.
The haunted house. I'm foreshadowing, I'm not sure. Margaret O'Donnell, 89 Clotho Avenue. I just wanted to ask a miscellaneous engineering item. I saw a piece of heavy equipment near the culvert on Clotho Ave, and I was wondering if any work would be starting soon.
We'll check on those dates. They were supposed to have given us some notice before they're actually out there, but we'll call them up and find out. Okay, we should have it by next week.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Margaret, if you want me to call you and let you know directly, give me your number. Okay? Give me my pleasure.
It actually looks like a tractor with a mowing attachment like they recently did,
okay.
Widening, clearing that area out a little bit more of the brush, but it'd be good to know if something's going on.
We'll check it out.
Is there any other comments?
Phil Zambran at 40 Van Loo Avenue. The tree list. So is there like a definitive plan moving forward to when you might start trimming some of the trees on the list?
We've done some tree line clearance. However, no, I haven't sat down with John and Ralph to discuss that right now. Ralph was away, and I'll probably do that between tomorrow and Friday this week.
So once you have your conversation with the Director of Utilities, is there, again, is there like a date, September, October? What I'm trying to get at is tree trimming should probably go on before the snow kicks in, before the fall falls in. So is it a budget issue? Is it a I'm sure it's a manpower issue.
More manpower.
Right. So if it's a manpower issue, would you contract out to bring someone in and get a little bit more bang for your dollar to take care of just those trees that are in the lines?
Well, that's why we're talking to other surrounding townships to assist us.
Okay.
And those conversations started last week with Ralph, and he's trying to, hopefully get that firmed up sooner than later, because he knows he gets the calls too. And I send him the emails when, hey, there's a big situation, check it out. If it's certain things that's in the power lines, then I send it to John Eckert, and they try to address it as much as possible, as quickly as possible. Sometimes it's put off because of something else coming up of urgency.
So it's more of a manpower issue, but not so much a budget issue.
As far as I know, it's more manpower.
Not budget.
We haven't utilized, but we have some budget for it, but
Okay.
not for 240 trees either.
Well, that's because you've got two lists combined. You've got, trees that need to be removed, and you have trees that are just in the lines. So
Correct.
Where I'm trying to go with this is it's been a little bit more than a year that you received a settlement from PSE&G. And again, in the money that you received, you could use it for a certain number of items. One of the items is tree trimming.
Right.
So I haven't seen any tree trimming going on or any of those funds, but one of the questions I wanted to ask was, there's an annual reporting requirement. So by my estimate, the year is up. So was the reporting requirement met, and when was it forwarded to PSE&G?
I don't have that information at this time.
Who would have that information?
Borough administrator would have that information.
Yeah.
Number
Yeah.
one.
This is it's in regards to utilization of any funds, not a requirement. It's not a.
There's a reporting requirement.
Yeah, but the reporting requirement is, did you use funds and for what? Not
Exactly.
how many trees did you trim?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Exactly. So was that taken care of?
We would have to double check with our CFO or our administrator and see.
Okay, so your CFO isn't here tonight?
No,
Is there
he's
a
not.
reason he's not here tonight? I'm just used to seeing a CFO there to be
Right.
able to answer these questions because
You
it
actually-
doesn't
The
seem,
position that would attend the meetings is the business administrator, not the CFO.
okay, and that's
It
on,
would happen to be a mixed position, but it's the
right,
business
but that's
administrator.
on for the agenda tonight for approval. Yes?
For the
No?
appointment?
Yes.
Of
For
it?
the appointment.
Yeah, there's
Yes.
an appointment for an interim BA.
Okay, so if I come back to the next meeting, I'll have an answer as to those questions? Maybe, perhaps?
I'm gonna defer.
I don't
to
see
Tom,
why you
but I
wouldn't.
don't know if we can respond to them.
One thing I would note is in reviewing that agreement, my interpretation is that a report is required if there has been money expended. So that would be the initial inquiry.
So you're saying none of the money has been spent?
Let me finish. I didn't say that.
Okay.
I said the initial inquiry is as to whether money is spent. If money is spent, then a report is generated.
You've definitely spent some of the money. It's
That may
just
be the
whether
case.
you've,
That's where we would
done the
refer
report.
to the business administrator. So I don't have the answer to that question, but I can say in reviewing the agreement or the settlement agreement, that's how I interpret that. If money has been spent, then a report is generated.
you definitely spent some money. So I would hope by the next council meeting, which, by the way, I don't know if there's any discussion on rescheduling that meeting as it falls on a holiday. So it might be the 10th or it might be another date, but I would think by the next council meeting, you'd be able to give some clarity as to how much you've spent against that amount of money. Thank you.
Mr. Zambrana, just to let you know, we have done some extensive tree trimming already this year. As a matter of fact, some of the residents on Highland or, I can't remember the name of the exact street, but it's the one adjacent to Highland that runs parallel.
Elkins?
Right behind it, we had some issues with them, actually, in regards to Cortland, thank you. Providing access because some of the power lines are behind the property, they're
Right.
not on the street side. So
Right.
we had our contractor coming in and doing some of that tree trimming as well. But currently with us looking at potential shared service agreements with neighboring municipalities and going out to bid for the contract, the idea is not to just spend the money on tree trimming with a subcontractor right off the bat while we figure out what the best way to and most efficient way.
I understand and I appreciate that, and I don't have a tree on the list. So I don't have a dog in this game or anything, but if you're on a list for like 12, 13, 14 years, at some point it seems like your business model, the borough's business model is, let's just wait for the homeowner to get tired and take it down itself.
Any other audience comments? Seeing none, I'll ask the council for a motion to adjourn the agenda meeting.
Council President, are we going to, did we have anything scheduled to talk about that holiday meeting, or are we going to address that afterwards?
My suggestion was wait till we all get together, including the mayor. I don't know times and dates, but we do have 3 weeks to put something together,
Okay.
more than enough time.
Okay,
I don't want to say let's do it on
No, I
ABC
know.
Day and somebody's got plans for ABC Day.
fine.
We all can get together and do that. Individually, no more than 3 at a time, but we'll all get together.
Fine.
So again, a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We will adjourn and return in approximately 5 minutes, 8:10. That's 5 minutes?
Yep.
Nope, I'm sorry. Yeah, 8:10. 7 minutes. Yeah.
Come on already.
You have to leave too?
We have executive.
With action. Good thing I asked.
Hold on, please. Wait. Now you can do it. Council President Dixon? Councilman Farkas?
Here.
Councilman Kerber?
Present.
Councilman Legati?
Here.
Councilman Mayor?
Here.
Councilman Revelinsky?
Here.
Mr. Council President, we have 6 present. Let the minutes reflect that adequate notice of the holding of this regular business meeting of the Borough Council was provided by the adoption of a resolution and the posting, filing, forwarding of a copy of the same to the official Borough newspapers, Home News Tribune, and Star Ledger Publishing Companies on February 20th, 2018. Public participation in this meeting will be permitted during public hearings and after the agenda of scheduled matters has been completed.
All rise in a moment of silence. Session for about 5 minutes prior to getting into the regular meeting. Everybody can stay put. We are getting out. We will move. Everybody just stay put. Is that correct, Mr. President?
I think it'll be a little longer than 5 minutes, probably closer to 15, depending on questions. 10 to 15 tops.
No more than 2 days. Yeah.
So, wait, Nick's gonna make his motion.
Okay, I know.
All right.
Practice it.
I make a motion that Resolution 18-236, we enter into executive session, be approved by council, and the council will enter executive session immediately following we vacate the council chambers and reserves the right to take action upon returning to the public session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So be it. We will be returning, like I said, within 2 days. Returning within 10 minutes.
chair is very cold. You can just
No, I don't have to.
return.
Next, comments from the audience on resolutions or on bills and claims. So, Mark, please read the bill resolution 18212.
Wait, are you opening it to the floor for comments first? For,
No, there was nothing.
sorry.
You did already.
Open the floor to comments from the audience.
There wasn't.
Yeah, it wasn't.
No any? Okay, cool.
Now you can close it.
Seeing none?
Now you want me to read the resolution by that? Okay. Authorizing the payment of bills, claims, and statements against the Borough of Milltown in the total amount of $7,412,993.59.
Been made by Council, yeah. You heard the reading of this resolution, what's your pleasure?
I make a motion that the resolution be adopted.
I second.
Motion made by Councilman Rowlinski, seconded by Councilman Kerwin. All in favor?
No?
No,
we have to
read
read.
discussion, and then roll call.
Discussion.
No? Okay. Roll call.
Now on the vote.
Yes. Council President Dixon?
Aye.
Councilman Farkas?
Aye.
Councilman Kerber?
Aye.
Councilman Legati?
Aye.
Councilman Mayor?
Aye.
Councilman Revelinsky?
Aye.
Council President Dixon, we have 6 ayes.
Thank you. I'm screwing it all up in that executive session in front of
I'm sorry.
The next is the introduction of resolutions and reports of standing committees. Now, for standing committees, introduction of resolutions.
Consent.
Yeah, is there anybody who wishes to pull any resolution?
From the consent.
Yes, Council President, 18227.
227.
And 18230.
2, 3. Is there any others?
Can I do it for him?
Huh?
Can I do it for him?
Clerk, please read
The consent
the
agenda.
thing you read.
Okay. The consent agenda?
18227 and 18230.
Okay. Whereas pursuant to the rules of council, the council may establish a consent agenda for any regular or special meeting, and whereas the Borough Clerk has posted a consent agenda for this meeting. Now therefore be it resolved by the Mayor and Borough Council of the Borough of Milltown, County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey, that the consent agenda previously prepared by the Borough Clerk be approved without the necessity of having the individual resolutions read by the Borough Clerk.
What's your pleasure?
Pleasure?
Vote.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to make a motion that the resolution be adopted.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Rowlinski, seconded by Councilman Councilman Legati. All in favor?
Aye.
Is there any discussion?
Council President Dixon?
Aye.
Councilman Farkas?
Aye.
Councilwoman Kerber?
Aye.
Councilman Legati?
Aye.
Councilman Mayor?
Aye.
Councilman Revelinsky?
Aye.
Council President, we have 6 ayes.
Thank you. Now, something like that.
18227.
Will the Borough Clerk please read resolution 18227?
A resolution of the Borough Council of the Borough of Milltown authorizing an agreement with Robert Wood Johnson Health Network to furnish 911 emergency medical telephone services to the municipality.
Is there any discussion?
And make this motion be adopted?
Thank you.
Second. And now you can go.
Now you
Now.
can discuss.
Motion made, second.
Is there any discussion?
Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Council President. Almost called you Mr. Mayor there, Ron. I asked this one to be pulled just simply because, for me, it's just a little confusing. I don't know how it got here. Not sure why we would be paying Robert Wood Johnson $7,500 over the next several years. 5 years. And what impact this has on our rescue squad in regards to who's getting notifications and responding to calls. You know, if Robert Wood Johnson shows up, they're gonna be the first ones to grab a person and bill for that person. I'm not saying it's a money grab, but I don't understand how this got on here.
This is a renewal of a.
It's a renewal, okay.
It's a renewal of an ongoing contract that we have with Robert Wood Johnson. It is at a minimal cost of $1,500 per year for 5 years. I think they work in conjunction with our dispatchers and our rescue squad as far as if medical attention is needed, to what degree that our rescue squad, I guess, can't respond, that Robert Wood Johnson has to respond. I believe under that is traumas, things along those lines.
It's specifically regarding the phone call too. It's not necessarily, it's when an emergency comes in and it's a medical call, not just a regular 911 dispatch call. When it's a medical call, they need to have a medical professional.
Okay.
Which is what, so RWJ is then patched in that sense. It's not necessarily about.
So it's not a redundancy of our dispatcher that they're, okay.
No,
That's what,
they're not.
Yeah, the language wasn't clear. I thought the same thing.
Yeah,
Right.
this is already a contract, this particular contract is already in place for over 5 years.
okay.
Yeah.
So it's a necessity, but it's not redundant.
Nothing further from me then.
Ask for a
We-
vote.
Yeah, just go ahead. We
No,
did, we
didn't.
made
Gotta
that.
get a vote.
Oh, so Nick made the motion, I seconded,
Mm-hmm.
right? So now we can,
Roll call, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Council President Dixon?
Aye.
Councilman Farkas?
Aye.
Councilwoman Kerber?
Aye.
Councilman Legati?
Aye.
Councilwoman Mayer?
aye.
Councilman Revelinsky?
Aye.
Council President, we have 6 ayes.
Thank you. Kindly read 18-230.
Maybe. Authorizing the Borough of Milltown to execute an agreement with Suppley Clooney and Company, consulting firm to act as interim business administrator.
Make a motion that this resolution be adopted.
I seconded.
Motion made by Councilwoman Revelinsky, seconded by Councilman Kerber. Any discussion?
Yes, so I asked to have this pulled also because of the lack of clarity. The fee schedule, my question was, you know, I'm on the Finance Committee, we haven't met about this, but I wanted to clarify the expectation of the hourly fee in regards to the division of the CFO and the BA duties. So will there be some sort of, are we just going to leave it open as to how much is BA or CFO, or are we going to sort of clarify, we want this many hours a week for BA, we want this many hours for CFO, basically so that we don't get so many charges run up at this high hourly rate?
And what basically is I've spoken to the CFO.
Mm-hmm.
He has indicated that he has been at BA in the past, he has the BA experience, and there would not be an additional increase. For example, when she was doing it, she got additional money for being the BA, whether she did it or not, she got the money. There would not be an additional increase in money. It may be an additional hour or 2 hours if that's what they have to do, but if he settles, what he settles during this time here, it would not be an additional thing.
So it's going to be the 2 days a week still?
Well, unless he has to come in, at that point in time, you're calling him in or something.
Okay.
And I believe, Mr. Bruder, you've spoken with him also, and,
That's correct. Just to kind of expand on the answer to your question, Councilwoman, he, in speaking to Mr. Barr, he indicated that if, for instance, he was required to be here at a council meeting, was asked to be here, then that would necessitate extra hours. He
Right.
indicated that he would anticipate a accomplishing his responsibilities as business administrator on the same schedule that he's on now, Tuesdays and Thursdays. I think he indicated 8:30 to 4:30, although I'm not certain if that's his hours, but I think that's what he said. And he said if he had to stay later to finish some of those responsibilities, he would. If he didn't have to stay later, he would not. So he intends to fairly stick with the schedule that he has now.
I have a question. He does 6 hours in one day, and he spends 5 of those hours as the CFO and 1 hour as the BA. We will get charged 6 hours at $125 an hour, not 5 hours at $125 and 1 hour at $250.
It's the same rate, it's 125. He's saying whatever hours he's here, it's 125 an hour. There's no windfall for him, no double counting. It's exactly your understanding is his intention.
In fact,
Okay,
if you read the resolution, I think what kind of clarifies it, third paragraph, whereas the borough has entered into agreement with Suppley Clooney for services related to interim CFO by resolution 18195 and wishes to amend said agreement with Suppley Clooney and Company to include services for business administrator. And I think that's what, if we focus on that aspect, it kind of clarifies that. The same agreement, the same dollar per hour, it's just they will also offer the services of business administrator.
I agree. However, we haven't really had a full-time or any business administrator since, well, the end of June. So, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of catch-up to be done on that, just as there was when he started as the CFO, and we had been missing a CFO for a while. So that was my concern is the balance of it. If he has to take a little off the CFO, if then he's going to be using the woman that's been helping him, or, you know, are we going to have 2 people that we're being charged by, or is it just going to be the one? So, I mean, this just was sort of a little bit open-ended, and I was, you know, I understand that we need somebody. You know, we've been saying that we need a business administrator badly all summer, so I'm happy to get someone. You know, I hope that we'll be addressing getting somebody, you know, permanently. However, for now, this is a stopgap, but I don't want these $125 an hour charges to be, you know, ongoing and, you know, even more than it is now, which is pretty rich for Milltown.
Gabrielle, do you have 18195 available? I believe it should indicate that no more than 24 hours in a given week, if I'm not mistaken, or 20 hours in a given week. That's the resolution.
I don't
referenced.
know that the resolution referenced the number of hours.
I think it's
I believe the one stipulation in there was the contract was not to exceed a certain time frame. I'm looking it up, but just give me.
Okay. I thought we had a not to exceed said hours a week, or at least anticipated 20 and then no more than 24. So.
But I do recall that we had a discussion about the rates for the CFO versus the CFO's assistants. Isn't that correct? Or was it all just one rate in that resolution?
In the resolution, it was one rate.
One rate, whether it was him or somebody.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the 2 primaries have the same qualifications. It's not a support administration person doing them. The resolution 18195 does not dictate the hours. There was discussions, I believe, regarding how many hours were potentially expected, but I know as part of that conversation was to defer in part to the professional as they see fit, based on the work and amount of things to be done. I do know that at the time we had discussed that, particularly CFO was not a position required to come to meetings, that unless there was a financial matter, such as budget introduction or public hearing, that they would not be required to attend to alleviate some of those extensive costs per hour.
Would it behoove us to modify this resolution to include something of 24 hours a week times 4 weeks a month, making that 96 hours total for a given month and not to exceed that,
This way, if they have certain aspects to cover in 1 week, the following week is, you know, maybe they wrap things up and it's not a full 24, maybe it's 12.
Well, you're, at this point, they're not working 24 hours. They're 2 days a week.
Okay.
And he's working,
Well, but we're gonna
generally,
add-
they're here, I'm not, actually, that's not true. The other member, Ms. Swisher, was in for bank recs, but she has not been in every week. This is specifically end of month, you know, catch up. But they have not been, as far as I'm aware, pushing 24 hours a week.
Right,
Because
but we're
it's 2
adding
days a week.
additional duties or responsibilities, such as.
Right, and that
So,
was,
I'm wondering, is there a way that we could limit it or suggest if you do plan to exceed 24?
This is really a function of what work you want your administrator to do. For instance, if you want to have them there just to keep things flowing, which is what Mr. Barr's understanding is, you're going to be well under that amount. But if your intention is to ask the BA to be involved in, I'll make up a radical example, taking part in negotiations of your new union agreement with PBA. Again, I realize there's a PBA agreement, but just as an example,
Which we
if you're
already
going
did.
to ask the BA to be involved in negotiating that, then obviously you're going to have more hours built in. So it's more a function of what you as a council want to have.
well, that goes to my original question, that we really haven't all discussed what we're looking at from this position right now. And, you know, when it comes time in the end of the year that it's more budget heavy, is the BA position going to suffer? Because if he's only doing a fixed amount of time, then, you know, we're leaving it up to his discretion, which is fine. But the council, I believe, should have some say in how he divides up his attention as well.
I would think that at least as council, we need to keep a real good line of communication with one another to make sure that if we're discussing something with Suppley, Clooney and Company, I've gotta love the "and Company," but if we're discussing something with them in regards to BA, let's try and bring all issues to it at one time rather than, you know, oh, let me chew your ear for 45 minutes, because that can just quickly add up, so.
Right, but to my point, Councilor Revelinsky, we haven't had that, even the Finance Committee hasn't had that discussion, let alone the full council. So that's where, you know, I was sort of a little surprised when I saw this, and that's why I pulled it, because it's sort of so general that it would have been nice to have that discussion before we had a vote on it, because we're, you know, at a disadvantage without a BA. We obviously need one, but we need to address the needs of having a BA to do all of the things that need to be done here in Borough Hall going forward.
Agreed.
I'd just like to ask a question. What condition is the finance department in right now? I understand that there are very dedicated employees doing yeoman's work in that department to get this thing, get the ship righted. Is the ship righted? Are we listing? Where are we in the finance department? Because if you're gonna make the same person the CFO and the business administrator, every hour the person is doing business administrator work, they're not doing CFO work. And if the finance department is not where it needs to be, this is counterproductive.
Well, part of the reason that the Finance Administration Office was behind was also not just the lack of a CFO, but lack of one of the support staff members, which you replenished tonight. So part of that will be alleviated, again, effective tomorrow morning. You will have a new full-time employee filling in a position that was missing since June. Right. So that should assist in a lot of the daily activities that can be remedied. As far as the CFO position, where Mr. Barr is currently acting, he is addressing things. There's, with the audit, there was a lot of work to be done with that since he was in and came into play when we were in a transitional period while that was occurring. And I believe that they're completing the audit and going through their meetings on that. And I know he's been working towards clearing up bank accounts, which again was on the agenda tonight for addressing. So I believe he's making a number of headway, but again, you have had a shortage of staff where you have one support member who has been doing the bulk of that work, but we should be seeing some alleviation with assistance effective tomorrow.
Okay, but the nature of business administrator is that you can have 5 problems in a day. It's not, you never know minute to minute what the problems are gonna be. So if your expectation is for Mr. Barr to be here as the CFO, and then you have 5 problems that would require business administrator issues, you're gonna have a whole day without a CFO. And if we're still playing catch-up, get back to my original point, are we caught up? Where are we?
Well, I think
I can answer that question. I believe that since Mr. Barr has been here, interim CFO, he's made some very good changes that should have been made years ago in the finance department. He's brought people on board that he has complete trust and confidence in. He's bringing another person in there to fill the lack of space in there. And I think all these decisions are helping him and lighten his load, so keep him on and continue getting us totally back on track if we're not on there already. I believe we're on track now. I do agree. God knows what it'd be if something comes up. You're 100% right. It could be anything. But I hopefully he'll reach out for us and he'll say, hey, look, this is just something I shouldn't be doing right now. We have to wait and see and dig. I think we're going the right way. I think the changes he's made are very well deserved changes, and I think they're doing nothing but helping that department. And in the future, that department's only going to get better than it's ever was. In my opinion.
Well, and that resolution, not to switch gears, Randy, but that resolution, if I recall correctly, also gave us the ability to terminate the contractor agreement when we found a full-time replacement. So
Correct.
it's nice to know that we can fill the need right now while we still put all the rest of the wheels in motion. I think it's beneficial for us to have that company here and company while we get our finance department back on track with the new personnel and the cross-training of personnel in there. So to utilize them for our BA stuff in the meantime is also, I think, beneficial to the borough at this time.
Okay.
I don't want to do it long-term, but for the interim.
We're not trying, but Council President Dixon, when, was her name Michelle, who was helping?
Ms.
the one
Fisher,
day?
yeah.
Okay, Ms. Michelle, when she was here, did the invoice come in as 2 people at $125, or was it just $125?
She's the only if she's the only one working, then it's by
Well, he was
hour.
here the one time, and so was she. They were trying to catch up to get caught up. So there's one time when they were both here. So I'm thinking it's $125 because it's referencing the company.
I think it's each.
I don't know which day that they were here. The first day when he was looking at records, I do know they were both here. I
Yes.
have not seen the invoice from that.
Oh, I see.
I didn't process.
Okay. Because to me, it sounds like, it doesn't matter if they're both here, it's $125, that's it. You know, and they got caught up, but.
I think it's each.
Well, we'll have to find out, that's all.
Do you know?
I would think you're correct, Councilman Mayor, that it would be $125.
It's $125 per.
What he had explained to me is.
Because otherwise, we could ask for them to send 20 people, and we'd still only be spending $125.
Because this
an
doesn't
hour.
indicate one person or 2 people, but generally, Randy Barr, you know, of course.
What he had explained to me is
But
that
if he has to bring in support personnel, doesn't reference that in here at all, right?
She's trying to say, no double dipping.
I think
Per person.
Mr. Bruder's got
They're
something.
both we hired Suppley Clooney and Company.
Right.
And as that, there are certain members of their company that have certain qualifications that we were looking for. Randy Barr is our primary.
Right.
And we have a secondary in his absence, which is Michelle Swisher.
Right.
So they are both the same qualifications, a CFO, they
Right.
have the same licensing. So if she is operating, it's $125 per hour, not for the entire contract, so it would be per person.
What was
So that's-
explained to me is also that Mr. Barr asked her to come in to do some sort of financing work, bank records, et cetera. She is a CFO as well, and he said it's totaling about a half day to 3/4 of a day per month. So you're not talking about a significant amount of hours. Mr. Farkas, one of the things that Mr. Barr said to me, because I posed some of these same questions, he said that if there is work that has to get done as far as the BA position on a given day, and you've given a good example that sometimes 5 fires are started and you need to address them, he said that if it requires him to work late to finish up that work, he'll do that. he's not looking to stay extra hours, but if he has to, he will do it. And he gave the example of how he came in on Saturday morning, he said, to wrap up some finance matters on the CFO thing, so.
Now to Dorian's point, Resolution 18195, which was passed, if they are both here on the same day and each charging $125 an hour per, that goes against that resolution, because that resolution says they can only charge $125 per hour, not $250, and that's what they're charging, because they'll have two people at the same time, and if they're charging per person, that exceeds the resolution that we passed.
I think you can clarify it, I think probably if you speak directly with Mr. Barr, that would clarify it. My experience, having worked with them in another municipality, they brought Supply Clooney and specifically Mr. Barr within Supply Clooney to serve as the BA CFO, and he did that for a period of time, and in fact he assisted them in their selection process for a new business administrator as well as a new clerk, and as soon as the municipality had accomplished that, they had it built in, and as we do here, where they said, thank you, Supply Clooney, and Supply Clooney said, we're glad to have helped you. If you have any questions, give us a call, but in other words, the contract terminated there.
I'm not questioning the termination, I'm questioning what we passed. I don't think they can charge $250.
That's a matter, perhaps, that can be clarified directly with them. I think they'll be reasonable in discussing that.
I don't see any voice, I don't have the answer, but we can look into it.
Good.
Anything else? Not?
Call roll. Okay. Council President Dixon?
Aye.
Councilman Farkas?
Aye.
Councilwoman Kerber?
Aye.
Councilman Legati?
Aye.
Councilwoman Mayer?
Aye.
Councilman Revelinsky?
Aye.
Council President Dixon, we have 6 ayes.
Thank you. Next. Reports from the Department of Finance, Administration.
Oh, correct, yes. So I have a couple of updates, one of which falls under finance and planning, which is about the website. We actually met before the meeting. We took a look at the mock-up of the new website. Council President Dixon asked me if I would share that maybe with the public sometime in September, just to show them what it's going to look like, if that's okay with you.
Once we,
Yes.
once we do a final approval, then yes, we can share the mock-up.
Right, we're going to we'll share the mock-up, and we are hoping that it will be going live sometime in October. All of the department heads are getting so right now it's all set up, it's just getting a lot of the content from the departments over to where it needs to go. So we're excited about that. It's going to be a lot more user-friendly, so look for in September a mock-up, and then you can provide your comments and tell us what you think, but we think it'll be a big improvement, and we're looking forward to seeing it in October. Additionally, speaking of websites and TV, we do have some new equipment that Mr. Einbinder is using. So tonight is the first time where we are live on YouTube and also on Channel 15. It's a one-camera shoot tonight. There's a problem with the camera behind the mayor, but we'll get that addressed. But this and all future meetings will be on YouTube Live, and the same feed will be on Channel 15, and then it'll be archived for future use on YouTube. So we appreciate Mr. Einbinder's efforts in getting everything all set up, and I've gotten a lot of positive feedback from people when they watched it on YouTube later on, so it's even better that it's live on both venues. So we appreciate that. And that's all I have from that standpoint.
Just a thought real quick before we go forward.
Sure.
We have a link to the council meetings on the website, to the YouTube page or
On our
something?
current website or on the new one?
No, on the new one. On the new one.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all that, yes, that's all.
Yeah.
Yes.
Next, the Department of Public Safety, chaired by Councilman
Thank you, Council President. I have two reports for tonight. Milltown Fire Department, month-end report for July 2018. Total number of fire calls, 9. Total number of training details, 3. Total number of work details, 5. Total number of meeting details, 2. Total number of miscellaneous details, 7. Total incidents totaling 26. General announcements. The Milltown Fire Department is always looking for new members. Please stop by either firehouse on Mondays between 6:30 and 7, or go to our website, milltownfire.org, for details. The Fire Department, once again, proud to participate in the 4th annual July 4th parade. The annual 4th of July parade. 30 members marched and drove the trucks, and some of our children assisted in carrying our banner for us. We also hosted attending fire department at the Legion Pavilion with hot dogs and burgers. Trophies were given out for several categories. Regrettably, we said goodbye to cherished member Lester Chip Clark, passed away. Chip joined in 1962 and served until 1980. Chip was foreman of Hose Company in 1968. He was very active in the Milltown Fire Department Exempt Association and was respected by all who knew him. Membership. Application for ex-Chief Frank Hoffman and Joe Casey have been reviewed and interviews have taken place. These men should be approved at this month's meeting, which they were. Training. This month, we trained in alternate water sources. The members set up behind the rescue squad and drafted water from the mill pond to pump ladder 73, which was a great opportunity for new drivers and for senior drivers to participate. Okay, now I have the Milltown police report for the month. Between July 6, 2018 and August 6, 2018, police answered 1,537 calls for service. This number includes, but not limited to, 911 and medical calls, traffic incidents, community outreach, walk-in reports, and public contacts. Police conducted a total of 548 motor vehicle stops, which included special traffic details including cell phone, slow down in our town, crosswalks, and seatbelt violations. 84 radar details and other traffic enforcement details were conducted in various locations during this period. Police responded to 24 motor vehicle accidents and made 17 arrests, which included shoplifting, drugs, DWI, carjacking, and warrant arrests. After a week-long investigation, Milltown Police Detective apprehended 2 suspects who were responsible for several car burglaries. Police continue to urge residents to lock all doors. Milltown Police have obtained another $7,000 worth of equipment from LESO program at no cost to the borough. Milltown Police have been continue conducting and hosting extensive active shooting training at 133 South Main Street, so residents may continue to see increased activity. Milltown Police Department officers continue to maintain all mandated training requirements and will continue to train and participate at the highest standards in law enforcement. Police will continue a strict enforcement of traffic laws, including speeding, cell phone use, and pedestrians in crosswalks. The Milltown Police Department encourages residents to remain vigilant by calling and reporting any suspicious activity and traffic concerns to the Milltown Police Department at 732-828-1100. Telecommunicators and crossing guards, oh, sorry, I missed a whole line. The Milltown Police Department is currently expecting applications for part-time safety telecommunicators, crossing guards. Information is available through the police department and is posted within Borough Hall. That's from Chief Kennelly. The only other thing I have is that last week there was the National Night Out that was well attended by residents. It was a little overcast, but it did bring out a lot of Milltown residents. There was a dunk tank that Councilwoman Trina Mayer, Councilman Rich Revelinsky took place in the dunk tank. Unfortunately, Councilman Legati took place in the dunk tank and thought he needed CPR after he got out, but I was okay. I can't thank the police department, all of the fire department, and all the rescue squad for making it a successful event. There was booths, food, giveaways. It was a really good time for everybody. I hope it's as an attended next year, even better. And that concludes my report, Council President.
Thank you. Next, the Department of Utilities, chaired by Councilman Richard Revelinsky.
Thank you, Mr.
Whatever I am.
Yeah, whatever you are tonight. Thanks, Ron. To keep it short and sweet, utility department's been pretty short-staffed over the past few months. One of the reasons why some of the work isn't getting done as quickly as we would like to. We've been discussing with our neighbors, East Brunswick, North Brunswick, and South River for assistance to see what we can do while we advertise and work with civil service in regards to getting more personnel. I'd like to say that last week on Wednesday, we had a conference call with South River's electric department. They are willing to come on board and loan us a crew of 3 men, approximately 1 to 2 days a week for the foreseeable future until we're back on our feet. We've had several employees go out for medical reasons and other recently, so trying to keep the lights on and keep things moving forward without incurring too much of a cost. The nice thing about this is, as you may recall, we have emergency services contractors as well, where, let's see, our last invoice from them for services on March 3rd and March 2nd during the storm was about $18,000. They're expensive, the emergency service contractor. South River's rates are much more in line with essentially being, if we had an extra person in our department, we will be paying South River. Should the rest of council agree on this, and I'd like to discuss that a little bit later in the new business, but essentially if they pay their employee X and his benefits, we would be compensating South River for that. No additional markup charge or contract for service. They understand the predicament we're in and are willing to help, and I'm thankful to the mayor and council over there in South River for working with us, as well as their DPW department. Other than that, nothing too drastic has happened this month, but PSE&G is going to be working on their monopole project along the right-of-way on the north end of town. So if you live along there and see some activity in the easement, don't be alarmed. And they're going to be proceeding with work as regularly scheduled. Secondly, the new bills for water rates have gone out, and my phone has been ringing, not so much off the hook as I thought it would. Luckily, the folks that we have down in the billing department are doing a great job at explaining to the residents the new billing structure or rate structure, how it's working. It's unfortunate, but we are working with Edmunds to create a backup system so that we can compare how much revenue we're generating based on if we were billing the same volumes that are in use this year at last year's rate. Because as you recall, the need for raising the rates this year was because of a $300,000 deficit in the budget. So hopefully we'll be able to compare those and see if we're making up that $300,000. Hopefully we are, and then come around January, be able to reduce those or possibly do less bonding for our next capital improvement to improve the water system. That's about all I have. That's our utility department. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to myself, John Eckert, or the billing department. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you. And if I may add one thing to that, and only because I received the call in the mayor's absence, North Brunswick themselves have said, all we have to do is call, and then we'll get a crew here as soon as possible while we're so short-handed and everybody's out. So it's all our surrounding towns have really pitched in and have stood up for what they need, and I accept, that we'll reciprocate to them if the need ever comes up for them.
Thanks.
Thank you. Next is Department of Public Works and Recycling, chaired by Councilwoman Dorian Kerber.
Thank you, Council President. Borough Council report for the Department of Public Works, along with regularly scheduled curbside collections, is the following. The mandatory DEP electronics recycling report has been filed. All outfall pipes have been cleaned and maintained as per stormwater regulations. Safety material has been installed at Albert Avenue Park. A tree was removed on Janet Court. Road repair has taken place on Tracy Drive, Cortlandt Street, and Harkins Road. The handicap parking spot at Northbrook Park has been repaved. A manhole rim and cover has been repaired on Washington Avenue. An additional 15 locations around town have been cut out for blacktop repair. Catch basin repair has taken place on Washington Avenue. The area alongside the annex building has been cleaned and prepped for the arrival of the new recycling shed. Pothole repair is ongoing. Please contact 732-828-2100, extension 136, to report a pothole in your area. Street sweeping is ongoing. Line painting is ongoing. 4 members of the DPW assisted the tax department with stuffing the tax bills. Monday, September 3rd, Labor Day garbage collection will be Tuesday, September 4th. Leaf bags will not be available until sometime in October. Please put out garden waste in cans on your garbage day for collection. No plastic bags will be collected. Please check Channel 15 for DPW updates, and I have the central garage report as well. Serviced police cars, replaced front and rear brakes on car 206, replaced the AC compressor on the 2006 Ford Taurus, replaced the sway bar bushings on truck 94, serviced truck 18, replaced center deck belts Toro mower 4100, replaced the alternator on the wood chipper, replaced batteries, AC, compressor, and belts for the back motor on the sweeper. Replaced power steering hose on truck 97, replaced PTO hydraulic line, truck 98, serviced the transmission on truck 92, and replaced parking brake cables and service truck 17. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Next, the Department of Environmental Health and Social Services, chaired by Councilwoman Trina Muir.
Thank you, Council President. I was unable to attend the last Environmental Commission meeting, so I will have a more comprehensive report at the next meeting. But as an aside, under the umbrella of the Environmental Commission, after the last council meeting, I approached Mayor Stieber to get his okay to develop a steering committee to deal with the log cabin on the Schwendeman property. So I'm happy to report tonight that we have members of the Environmental Commission, members of the Boy Scouts, Councilman Farkas and I have met to develop plans to move forward with the land that belongs to the borough and to come up with the uses for the property, develop a timeline for the improvements to the property. And we actually met there on Saturday. Councilman Revelinsky joined us to take a look around, and we're very excited to move forward. We are right now in the stages of what we need to do before the winter to get it weatherized, what improvements need to be done. So we will be meeting sometime in September, and we will continue to report on this. And the official the first thing that we did was come up with an actual name for the place, which is good. So it's going to be called the Schwendeman Nature Center. So it will have some educational value. There will be some meeting rooms. There's been a lot of work done already to improve the area around the pond, to get rid of the weeds. We're happy to have Mary Ellen here tonight because she's an integral part of what will go on with that, and so we'll keep the council informed as we go forward. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Department of Recreation, chaired by Councilman Randy Farkas.
Thank you. SAC reminders. If your child is sick or shows signs of sickness, please keep them home and do not send them to camp. This is for the safety and well-being of all campers and staff. Please refer to the policy on communicable diseases for detailed clarification. School year SAC packets are now available. They have been emailed to the current SAC parents and are available on the website and at Borough Hall. The deadline is August 24th, so be sure to register your child early. School year SAC begins on September 6th. Recreation. Fall soccer, tennis, and yoga registration forms are now available. Please be sure to register early to avoid late fees. You can download them from the website or pick one up at Borough Hall. Adult volleyball and men's basketball will be starting up in September. Look for registration forms the end of next week. The annual Albert Avenue Summer Recreation Carnival was held at Borough Park and was a great success. Parents, as a reminder, please be sure that you are packing your child a water bottle every day for rec camp as well as SAC. It is extremely important, especially in the heat. Please note that when weather is extremely hot, the pool will remain open until 9 p.m. We will post on Facebook as well as announce it at the pool. Borough Pool News, preteen night every Tuesday, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Adult night, Friday, 8/17, 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. Labor Day picnic, Monday, September 3rd, all day long. Family fun and games. And lastly, this month's Recreation Advisory Committee meeting has been postponed until September. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Councilor. Next, we move on to old business. Does any member of the council have any old business to bring before the council? Seeing none, we'll move on to new business. Does any member of the council have any new business to bring before the council?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Whatever I am.
Ron. As I touched on earlier in my report, South River has extended their hand to assist us at this time. As you mentioned, other neighboring towns have as well. It's come to my attention that we don't actually have a ordinance or written agreement in place with South River, which is why I'd like to discuss now. Mr. Bruder, if you could chime in a little bit on what would be required for that so the rest of the council can understand. They've sent us over some rates of what their billing rates would be. But I'd like to try and get at least a nod here, if not an official vote, on what is needed to proceed. We do have some work that's pending that John has gone over with South River, some work orders. They're slated to come in this week, just pending Borough's council's approval. Basically confirming that they'll be paid for helping us out.
Yeah, simply I would need, if you can recite or provide me with whatever provisions that you'd like included, I can draw up what's called either a memorandum of understanding or a memorandum of agreement for a shared service agreement between both municipalities. Fairly straightforward document.
Okay, and then would that require council's approval?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Your thoughts or concerns on us moving forward at this time under an understanding with South River? They've always helped us out in the past, but it's just now that we're looking at doing this for, you know, more than just one time or a severe weather emergency, we feel that it's pertinent to have something in writing, but I think as long as everyone's on the same page and has an understanding, they're willing to come over and kind of work under that notion and, you know.
It's a common mechanism, and
okay.
It really depends on the terms of the arrangement, but certainly a memorandum of understanding to get going as between the two municipalities is perfectly appropriate.
Okay. So is there anyone up here that has any issues, concerns with this? Speak now or hold your peace until the next meeting.
Do we have to approve it at the next meeting before they can actually start?
That's a good question, John.
Well, I think if there's an emergent need, the need would kind of rule the day, and the services would be provided pending the MOU.
But the emergent situation being what it is now is the number of personnel, skilled personnel or qualified personnel for going up on the line work is down to one. So if we want to do anything, like there's a property on Main Street, a new home that is the property owner's been requesting to have electric service provided for some time. We have some other line pole transfers from work that was in the wintertime that had to get delayed, where a tree had come down and we did a temporary transfer, but we haven't transferred permanently back over. So these are the things trying to button up before we have our complete crew back on staff. Over the next couple weeks, until the next council meeting at least, it's probably going to be 1 day a week
that South River has agreed to basically send a crew over. John will have work orders for them to do a certain amount of work so that he can come up for air and take care of the other menial tasks with the crew that he has. So, as long as everyone's on board and I don't hear any like major, unless South River throws up a big red flag, there's no objections here to moving forward and then finalizing things.
Would you need an agreement with each town?
Well, what other towns would be involved? South River?
North Brunswick has offered assistance. To what extent we'd be able to utilize them for things other than some DPW needs, John still has to make the determination. Same with East Brunswick. But off the top of my head, it could involve things like meter reading, a water shutoff, or valve replacement. If there's work that just needs to be done that he just doesn't have the manpower to take on at this point.
It sounds as though these would be not interrelated, so you would have separate agreements with each municipality.
Councilman Farkas, you may remember, but during Irene, I believe it was, storm, didn't we have South River working with us, and didn't we do an interlocal agreement that, when they were over here during that?
I think it was, I don't think there was an interlocal agreement. It was, it was
help.
verbal. It was just a verbal,
Just
hey, can you help? Yeah, we'll be there when it does.
I didn't know if there was one in place already because of that. I remember they were here for quite a while trying to help us get
I
straight.
thought we had one for emergency.
I mean, there is an existing,
I thought we had
policy.
something with South River for emergency.
No, it's an understanding. The other thing is that we have the New Jersey Public Power Association, which is the 7 or 9 municipalities that sell power independently, Milltown, South River, and the other 7 that are scattered around, I think, Seaside, Lavalette, places like that, where there's language in our agreement that says at these specific rates, we will come to your aid in an emergency.
Right.
But, number one, to rely on them when they are about an hour's drive from us.
Probably in the same shape.
Right.
Yeah, and this is their busy time of year. The nice thing is that moving forward with South River and getting something on paper is that, look, we are neighbors, we're close enough, we're both in the unique situation of having our own electric departments. I think it would be really beneficial for us to even coordinate training efforts and communication so that when we need a person, or perhaps they need a person, everyone's on the same page and familiar with the qualifications of the type of person they'd be receiving for a position. So it helps us all in the long run as well as the immediate need. So.
And this is strictly for electric, correct? Or anything?
Well, I think we should craft it to be for anything,
Okay.
but at this time, it is truly for electric purposes, for the utility department.
Mr. Brewer, this would be just like our police department. They ask for assistance from North Brunswick or for whatever reason. Could be a house fire, could be traffic. They just come. I mean,
That's right. That's why you're referring to it as a memorandum of understanding as between the parties.
Okay, thank you.
So
I
do you
mean,
need
I
a
haven't-
motion and a vote to,
No, there'd be, just say, you can ask for a concurrence of the council to go forward in preparing an MOU or memorandum of understanding with South River and whatever other municipalities may be needed. So, is there
Gabriella,
concurrence?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, and I have no problem, especially since we're shorthanded, but I believe we're meeting Wednesday night, the Utilities
Yes.
Committee,
Yes.
to address so that, issues that, so we don't get in this situation again,
Mhm.
like what needs to be done now, or what we need to do moving forward so that we don't wind up in this situation again and can hopefully not have to take advantage.
Well, one of the things that we've learned too recently, and we're always learning and adapting, is the cross-training of members.
Right.
And also just picking the brain of the gentleman in South River. They have 5 people in their electric, 5 people in their water, and approximately 5 in their sewer, which makes 15 in utilities. We have 5 people running all 3. 5 total. So we're short-staffed to begin with. And, it's something that if we want to keep the lights on and still maintain our independence, then we're going to need to make a determination on what our best path moving forward is and make that investment in our own future. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Anything else? If not, we'll move on to audience comments.
Wait,
hold on.
New
I'm
business.
I'm requesting that council make a motion on the floor to execute a settlement agreement for the stipulations of Labor Council with our local union.
Make a motion that we,
Do that?
what she just said.
Okay.
And I second.
On the floor. On the floor.
And I second.
Okay.
Fancy.
Take roll call, please.
Okay. Council President Dixon?
Aye.
Councilman Farkas?
Aye.
Councilwoman Kerber?
Aye.
Councilman Legati?
Aye.
Councilwoman Mayer?
Aye.
Councilman Revelinsky?
Aye.
Council President Dixon, we have 6 ayes.
Thank you. Now I'm going to move on to audience comments. Public comment portion of our meeting is to allow the public to bring to the council's attention their concerns or comments. The council will respect the public's time by refraining any comments until the speaker has finished. It should be further noted that public comment portion of our meeting is not structured as a question and answer session. If a member of the public has questions they seek answers to, an appointment can be made with the appropriate office during regular business hours or with a member of council during their allotted office meeting time. Please state your name and address for the record when you come to the podium. That being said, anyone from the audience? Young lady first. You're here anyhow. You wait.
Margaret O'Donnell, 89 Clothow Ave. I asked Councilman Legati if you would please extend the thanks of the residents of Clothow Avenue and the 6th District in general for the increased police presence, the slowdown in our town. I watched someone drive past that radar at 44 miles an hour when the first day that it was out, so it really did start to slow people down, and I saw a lot of brake lights eventually, and it was very, very helpful in increasing the safety. So please express our thanks.
I will pass it along.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you. Russ?
Good evening, Russell Einbinder, 220B South Main Street. 2 things I want to bring up, both have to do with the TV station. Thank you, Councilwoman, talking about what we're doing tonight. We have a new computer that's kind of kick butt, and it's going to be able to handle everything, so nothing should freeze or things like that. And right now, we're going to keep things on YouTube. We also have now, since I set it up, the capability of doing things live around town wherever I have a Wi-Fi set up now. A realistic, council, not council, town-approved TV station that we can put out anything we want live. The beauty of it is, too, you can pretty much see it on your phone or tablet or anything you want, and that's one of the things we want for the future, of course. And we're obviously going to have a link at it, Councilman Revelinsky, but we're also going to have, if it's one of the things I should have spoke to you about earlier, I'm sorry, probably should embed it or something like that eventually also, the actual, whatever the current live is, right on the website, so they don't have to even leave it if they don't want to, the Borough website for the future. Probably something we should look into, see if that's possible in the program they're talking about. That's number 1. Number 2 is, for October 17th is pretty much 95% sure now. I had to try and make sure I had I had to have a decent moderator for the candidates forum for this year. I was working, trying to maybe change things up about who the moderator was. I'm not sure if that's going to happen or not yet. Pretty positive I have somebody committed now, but that date, the 3rd Wednesday, is when we're going to have it. Like I mentioned to some of you, I haven't officially done anything because I'm pretty much doing this stuff myself these days. That will be done here, as always, at 7 o'clock. 7:30 is going to start, but at 7 o'clock, et cetera, et cetera. I'll get more information to the candidates and to the political chair people as soon as I can as well, all right, just so you know. So in case anybody was wondering about that. And the other thing was, yes, there is not a camera facing me right now. That's why everybody at home is seeing my little bald spot in my head my son teases me about. And that should be done by the next meeting as well. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Russ.
Any other audience comments? Seeing none, I will ask for council comments.
I just have 2, Council President.
Sure.
I would like to extend my congratulations to the newly engineered young lady sitting with us tonight. That's A for the engineering company, and then B was, if nobody noticed, Mike McClellan left us in a lurch took off and left Lou in charge?
Well, if I may add one thing to that. He asked if, Mr. McClellan asked if he could leave. And I looked at him and he says, no, with this rain, there's 1.5 feet of water in my basement. My suggestion to him was to hire an engineering firm and see if he could fix it.
Now, please duly noted, I didn't say anything about the water. That was all Council President
I
Dixon.
said it.
Okay. My last comment is, in the agenda meeting, we had a whole discussion on shade tree. Everybody really needs to understand the amount of work that is involved in researching, doing this, doing that, going around town. I have to, just say thank you very much to Councilwoman Kerber here for, doing all of that. I know Councilman Revelinsky did it as well. It's a long, drawn-out process. I've done it 2 years. Please be patient. I'm sure we'll get to you. Councilwoman Kerber is working very hard on it, and I want to thank her for all her work with the shade tree list.
Oh, thank you.
That's it.
Thank you.
Since
Any
we're
other
lovey-
council?
Since we're lovey-dovey right now. Ron, nice work tonight,
Yeah,
for what it's worth.
this isn't a fun job. Seeing no other council comments, I'll take a motion to adjourn. We were supposed to go into executive session.
Oh, I gotta read
believe
again?
we
Are we gonna go back into it?
I believe
Didn't
the
think we had.
questions that he has, he's not gonna have the answers until Thursday.
I have I can go into executive for 2 minutes and
Okay.
explain
fine.
Okay.
information.
Hey, read it or no?
Going into executive
We
session.
don't need action though, right?
No action will be taken.
You can make your motion
Oh,
without
my
action.
God. No action, right?
Yes, please.
No action.
I move that the resolution to enter into executive session be approved by council, and the council will enter executive session immediately following the vacation of the council chambers by the public.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We'll take a 2-minute recess so we can get this over with.
No.
No.
It won't even be 2 minutes.